The DEI Vibes campaign is in full effect as the DNC meets this week to elaborate on their policies of inclusivity.
For too long, I think, candidates have taken for granted constituencies that have been the backbone of the Democratic Party.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And they show up when it's, close to election time and show up in a black church.
President Biden is coming back. He's a comeback kid. He's a fighter.
And want to get the vote, but just haven't been there. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
What?
Should we be an inclusive culture or a rational one? We'll talk about that and more today on Indie Thinker. Welcome to the show. My name is Reed Huberman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Today's show is sponsored by our friends over at Sailor Ridge. You do not have to travel far to experience amazing getaways, and Sailor Ridge can help you do that. If you live in the North Georgia area, or no matter where you're at in the country, Sailor Ridge can give you 3 amazing properties that will help you and your family have one heck of a memorable vacation. They will give you escapes that feature things like the Shiloh, where you can vacation like a hobbit, or things like the Lookout Tower overlooking the beautiful picturesque mountains in North Georgia. To see all of the amenities and all the properties that Sailor Ridge has to offer you and your family, go to SailorRidgeTreeSort.com and let them know that Indie Thinker sent you. Now, inclusivity has been all the rage these days, and it's become not only an intrusive idea in colleges and corporate America, but also the church. The once obviously exclusive faith that preach the narrow way, and the fact that few there are that find it, now has given way to the constant pressure to bend and contort their doors until they are wide open enough for drag queen worship, and even more reprehensible, evangelicals for Harris. Just recently on a Zoom call, they gathered to talk about how ridiculous you are as a Christian if you would ever deign to vote for Trump, and you must vote for Kamala Harris. One of the presenters on the Zoom call was Latasha Morrison, and she said this: the Trump platform is bankrupt of grace, truth, and compassion. Morrison went on to say that she exclusively wants to vote for the inclusive Kamala Harris because she loves the least of these. Now, Morrison is not an evangelical that I'm familiar with at all, but that's probably for the best, given that she thinks compassion, grace, and truth can be found on one of the most radical abortion tickets in American history.
And my record is so pro-choice, Nancy Pelosi asked me if I should tone it down.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body.
But I guess when you don't ask the baby and you just call it a fetus, and then you say things like it's a woman's right to choose and it's reproductive health, you can forget the fact that over 60 million babies have been aborted in America, and then you can call that compassion. But as a result of this meetup, a classic response from a member of the trans flag in your bio group on X spoke up and said the quiet part out loud. So this individual said this: I joined the Evangelicals for Harris call for about 30 minutes. While I am grateful for it and will gladly collaborate with anyone who is pushing for Harris, I do want to warn the LGBTQIA plus ad infinitum Christian that it did not attempt to be a safe space for us. First and foremost, and this is very important, LGBTQ Christians are akin to unicorns and leprechauns. Individuals who can't even get the creation story right, male and female, don't get the rest of the story right, you can rest assured. But more to the point is that there's an important idea in what that person just said. On a call where people are selling out every vestige of core Christian principles to vote for a woman who will open America's borders to drugs and murder victims, even that is not open or inclusive enough for some. Without coming right out and saying it, this person revealed the dirty secret of inclusivity. You can never be inclusive enough because inclusivity doesn't actually exist. It's an invisible, arbitrary line used as an extortion tactic intended to shame others for personal gain. It's a cynical attempt to take from others what you did not earn, and is by that virtue interminably and obviously exclusive. Can you even conceptualize a world where there was no such thing as exclusivity? Imagine paying for your gas with goodwill and cheerfulness because you think it's hateful to demand money from somebody who is an optimist and obviously a communist. But I digress. That's a little silly. Of course, we all know there is no gas in the communist world. But I think you get the point. Inclusivity ultimately becomes very exclusive, oddly enough. So take as proof for this and the impossibility of inclusivity, this article from Harvard Crimson. The year before Harvard's then president Claudine Gay was fired for being an intellectual fraud. It says this: prominent Harvard speakers and community members convened last week for the 2023 Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Forum. These titles get longer and longer. Anyway, themed Reckoning and Transformation, in the quest for healing, restoration, and accountability. This forum aimed to elevate and prioritize truth-seeking, and reckoning with our past in order to more fully understand our history and actions. Despite such ambitious aspirations to amplify Harvard's institutional and systemic approach to diversity, one thing feels missing from the campus discussion of social justice: our role as society's most privileged few. We are told from the day we open our acceptance letters that Harvard is home, that we belong, but for the vast majority of applicants, let alone people, Harvard will never be home. Harvard alumni and students know very well that Harvard will never be home to everyone. It's never going to be home to plagiarists. Well, I guess I should say it shouldn't be. It will never be home to dictators and serial killers, and it shouldn't be. But extreme examples aside, it's also never going to be home to everyone because it is one of the most exclusive schools in the country. It will cease to be an Ivy League school if it ever does become home to everybody. The moment the doors open to everyone, Harvard will cease to exist, and it will cease to become a place where anybody really wants to go. But no one at Harvard really wants that kind of inclusivity. That's not what they're after. Again, this is the dirty secret. The devil is always in the details. They want inclusivity of a certain type. That is to say, they want exclusivity, but they want to call it inclusivity. Deep down, we all know what they really want. It's just that we're not supposed to notice. We're not supposed to say it out loud. We're not supposed to acknowledge the fact that they're asking for a particular group to be favored over others. Now, this brings us to one of the most obvious and hilarious problems with inclusivity to ever grace the Olympics. We've all seen the viral video by now of Raygun, the Australian breakdancer, bunny hopping, T-Rexing it up. And it's on the screen right now if you haven't seen it. But since probably we all have, for levity's sake, I'd like to show you Rachel Dratch's mock performance on Jimmy Fallon.
Where's that music coming from?
Now listen, the funny part about this is that you know when Jimmy Fallon is gutsy enough to mock you, that you're on super safe territory. Everyone knows the performance was awful and that you've seen better dancing on any street corner in any major city by men who will never venture into the Olympics. The Olympics isn't an art competition after all. You're not rewarded for originality. Now, let me anger anyone that I still have with me at this point in time, and I will tell you that I think there may be a world in which breakdancing could legitimately be a sport, given its penchant for coordination and strength, and maybe even a sport at the Olympics. I mean, after all, ice skating is a sport.
Oh dear.
But what Raygun did doesn't possess anything even close to resembling the skill and athleticism of breakdancing. You should know, Raygun beat 9 other female Australians to make it to the Olympics and did not score a single point while she was there. And again, her performance included this move. Now, how bad her performance was led many people to speculate online that Raygun had been a part of a fraudulent selection process, which included her husband on the committee that was selecting the athletes to go to the Olympics. This led to a Change.org petition signed by 50,000 people accusing her of unethical practices, which again, you can understand based upon moves like this.
Okay.
Now, those organizations involved in her selection have denied all allegations, but it doesn't answer the question, how did this girl get to the Olympics if she really is that untalented? Her PhD thesis about breakdancing may give us an idea. Gunn's PhD thesis, titled Deterritorializing Gender in Sydney's Breakdancing Scene, a B-girl's experience of B-boying, covered the subject of breakdancing and how it is dominated by men who don't hop like bunnies and do T-Rex poses. Now, time fails us to discuss how far the Academy has fallen, that anyone could earn a PhD with such an inane subject matter as their focus, or to detail how worthless appeals to authority are anymore. So we'll push those aside for right now, but the real thing to focus on is the fact that Ray Gunn wrote about the inclusion of women in breakdancing and identified herself as an LGBTQIA carrot stick, parentheses, asterisk person. So her thesis starts like this. As a member of the LGBTQI community, she forgot the plus, by the way, as a member of that community, though one receiving privileges for being heteronormative. Wait, stop. Okay, hang on one second. I'd like to read more, but there's one thing poking out at us. She's dating a dude, but she's LGBTQ whatever. Will wonders never cease. Next, you'll find motorcyclists that identify as bicyclists.
I finally realized that my life as a motorcyclist was a lie. I was a bicyclist.
So allow me to summarize. We don't know if Ray Gunn kicked it old school by going Tanya Harding style on her opponents by cheating. But she likely is a DEI pick because she insists on being identified with a category that she doesn't even fall into for victim points. Good thing she got those points because none are coming her way for breakdancing. So we can be sure of this one thing. The DEI racket is in the habit of finding new and creative ways to claim victim status in order to take from others what they did not earn. This is why I can be so blunt when speaking about Ray Gunn, even though she's come out and talked about how hurt she is by all the criticism that she's received online.
Realize that will open the door to so much hate, which has frankly been pretty devastating.
I have no doubt that the backlash is hurtful to her, but it is deserved. I would never go out of my way to personally attack someone like she has been, but as a Christian, I have no problem telling the truth when it comes to the inclusivity DEI hucksters. They are perfectly happy to destroy anybody standing in their way and use duplicitous, dishonest, and sinful tactics in order to benefit themselves. And the worst part of all of this hustle is that when they get caught, they always act like victims. The tears start rolling and they want you to feel bad for them that they were trying to steal from others. And this is the insidiousness of the inclusivity racket. It's the worst kind of evil because it's shrouded in the veneer of virtue. The reason this shouldn't be too surprising is because the whole DEI racket is one big hustle, and it always has been. In his book, Rules for Radicals, Saul Alinsky said, whenever possible, go outside the experience of an opponent. Here, you want to cause confusion, fear, and retreat. This cynical, demonically inspired villain, and I mean that like literally from a comic book, essentially gives the blueprint for the tactic of inclusion in that rule. All the pretense of historic injustice and trying to make sure everyone has an equal shot is just simply gaslighting, pure and simple. The goal of using identity is to go outside of another's experience so that you can confuse the issue and make it about whatever you want it to so that you can push away whoever's standing in your way and hope that they just retreat because you can say, well, I'm a black lesbian woman and you've never walked a mile in my shoes. And of course, all you have to do to reveal this dark side of inclusivity is just tell them you're a white Christian male and watch how uninclusive they really get real fast. The reason these imposters have to use this tactic of deception is because inclusivity is unnatural. For all of our talk of marginalization and how bad it is, very few people have stopped to realize that marginalization is a part of human nature. It's a part of life. Your own DNA marginalizes you, for crying out loud. A woman will always have to pee sitting down. I'm sorry if that marginalizes you, but sorry ladies, we can write our name in urine if we wanted to and do so standing up. All you can do is pee down your leg if you try to stand up. Men win on this account, but men can't get pregnant or give life to the world, contrary to popular belief.
I have nipples, Greg. Could you milk me?
I'm sorry, but them's the rules. The act of trying to pretend that the rules don't exist, and when you butt up against them, that you're somehow being marginalized, is ridiculous. Marginalization is actually only a deeply narcissistic and very neo-Marxist postmodern lie, and it's harmful to all of us. The point is, exclusivity based upon merit is a good thing. It is a natural thing. The kind of inclusivity that is forced upon us by the DEI types and critical race theorists is incredibly damaging. Race hustlers and inclusivity preachers will trample over whoever gets in their way. Also, they can stand atop their unearned moral superiority and unearned achievements. Now, when it comes to Christians, which is really the heart of why I wanted to talk about inclusivity, we should kind of have a problem with it on moral grounds, on rational grounds, but also on theological grounds. You cannot be a Christian and believe in an inclusive gospel because it isn't the gospel that Jesus preached. The whosoevers of John 3:15 have to give way to John 3:18, that those who do not believe are condemned. Progressive Christians like the New Atheist will tell you that I'd rather go to hell than to preach an exclusive gospel.
Ultimately, I told myself, if I die and get to see God, and God's like, hey, sorry, you were too inclusive of people. You were too loving. You were loving your neighbor in a way that was just over the top, and you just were too graceful. So you're going to go to hell. It just is what it is. Like, I made peace with that. If that's the take, then it is what it is.
Well, progressive Christians may just get their way. I hope you like summers in Florida because it's going to be 10 times hotter there. Because there is a place that is inclusive of all lifestyles, and it will not pass judgment on you, no, not for a second. There, the message has always been, do whatever you want, and then land a cozy spot right next to the devil and his angels. Oh! Heaven, on the other hand, has no place for the likes of child abusers and Hitler, and thank God for that, because that means that ultimate justice exists. And if you're really thinking clearly, you would long for that, not inclusivity. So what I am clearly not saying here is that when I decry inclusivity, I'm saying we should shut the doors of our church to this person. What I'm clearly saying is that we shut the door to their ideas and that we should not be an inclusive place in terms of all ideas being acceptable. Besides, let's just be really clear about this. To talk about inclusivity in church is just ridiculous. There's not a single church in America, with rare exceptions, that is shutting the doors of their church to somebody. Just because they're gay, let's say, or they practice a gay lifestyle. After all, we don't have like COVID tests like you tried to force down our throat for people that are gay to check them at the door to make sure that they don't have any pride flags in their home. Again, we all know that every gay person is welcome in any church in America. It's just that we're not going to affirm and we're not going to celebrate those ideas. We are not a place of inclusivity as far as that is concerned. But something tells me, progressives know this, every church in America will welcome the gay person with open arms, but the first time the pastor does his job when it comes to teaching biblical sexuality, the LGBTQ person will always leave. That's because they don't want to be welcomed, they want to be affirmed, and they ultimately want to be celebrated for their lifestyle choices. This is the problem with our modern understanding of inclusivity. It's almost always an attempt to lie when the truth doesn't make you feel good. That is not Jesus' job, and it better not be the church's job. So, I do believe in inclusion in the same way I believe in white men in the NBA. You should get a shot, but if you can't make it, you get the bench or the boots, just as simple as that, including others based upon identity status, regardless of what it is, and not caring about merit is a recipe for humiliation and mediocrity and communism. It doesn't serve the person clamoring for inclusion because they'll always know that whatever they're given as a result of their identity, they didn't actually earn. So if you want them to experience the joy of earned success, you will want to get rid of inclusion, the DEI racket, all of it, as quickly as you possibly can. The only way to experience the true joy that you were created for is to hear and respond to the truth, told relentlessly and regardless of your feelings. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Check out our sponsors down below, but most importantly, go with God.